Hello, this is Uncle Milo's Story Corner. I'm Uncle Milo, and I have a real treat for you. I have a book called The Cooperstown Caboose. My friend Ray wrote this, and I'm going to read chapter 1. It's quite an interesting story, very exciting chapter, and here goes. The Cooperstown Caboose by Ray Cassinari, chapter 1, The Thunderstorm. Dakota ran as fast as he could through the open field. He dodged the exploding blasts as the invading UFOs fired down on him. The UFOs covered the sky overhead. The massive flying discs were conquering warships with the sole mission to destroy life on this planet. Gasping for breath, Dakota was joined by hundreds of other people running, each trying to reach the safe haven way off in the distance. He knew in his heart that the large stone gateway was a lifeline and a safe haven, if only he could make it there alive. As he ran toward the humongous stone pillars, he tried to read the writing on the top cross member. The ear-piercing sound of the sonic blasts and the screams of those who would not make it there alive made him push extra hard. Dakota wiped the sweat out of his eyes and tried again to read the writing on the cross member of the megalith. He could only make out the Roman numeral X, and then suddenly his entire sight flashed brilliant red. He felt a stinging pain on the right side of his head. The warship's fiery laser had finally got him. Dakota was hit! His eyes blurred with sweat and blood, but he could still see the megalith and stone cross member. Ever so close and determined, Dakota screamed out, "I'm going to make it!" Dakota woke up. It was a nightmare. His heart was pounding, and perspiration covered his body. The terrible thunderstorm outside made the nightmare all the more real. This had to be the worst thunderstorm ever recorded in New York State history. It was even worse than you can even imagine. Some people might say, you had to be there, but Dakota had to close his eyes. The sky lit up. The ground shook. He heard a very faint sound of thunder starting to crack. The long cracking of thunder got louder and louder, and concluded with a very large bang and a rumble. With a bright lightning bolt, the darkened night lit up. A nanosecond later, returned back to darkness. Dakota opened his eyes and saw the countryside outside his bedroom window. It was very dark, almost black. Down through his window, he saw a strange phenomenon known as ball lightning. This awesome sight was electrically charged spheres, each the size of beach balls. With brilliant and different colors, they bounced around. Some made a popping sound as they bounced around in all directions on the ground. The electrically charged lightning balls made loud hissing sounds. Some floated, some hovered, and some vanished suddenly. Others, some silent, others with an explosive bang. The strong smell of ozone filled the air, the blue gas formed by electrical discharges from lightning. This was all happening at the same time that the mighty and massive electrical storm unleashed its very worst. Powerful wind gusts blew. Trees succumbed and bent to the point where they almost snapped. The house shook and swayed. Heavy rain poured down in pounding sheets. Each blast of lightning lit up the countryside clearly, so that Dakota could see this monster of a storm raising havoc over the entire Cooperstown countryside. After that horrific night of nature's rage, a peaceful morning arrived in Cooperstown with a bright sun. It shone on the carnage of a major electrical storm and the remains of a deluge. In the aftermath, broken tree limbs and debris lay scattered around. It was early summer in Cooperstown, New York, and today it was also the last day of school. Mother stood in the kitchen of the Stevens house and peered out the kitchen window, assessing the storm's damage in the yard, observing the mess the storm left behind. She heard a voice offering, "Good morning." Mother was an attractive woman in her early 40s. Her blonde hair and blue eyes were a family trademark for her children, especially her daughters. She turned around and offered, "Good morning, honey. How did you sleep last night?" Dakota walked up to her and kissed her on the cheek. He looked out the window, standing alongside her. The morning sun shone on his dark brown hair and handsome face and made his deep blue eyes twinkle. Dakota was gentle, a true adventurer at 12 years old, a romantic and a bit of a genius. Mother always said about him, he should be taking college courses. He was one of those kids that does not have to study for a test and then aces it. If you met Dakota, you would not know it. He never acted like a know-it-all. Now Dakota peered out the window and said, "I thought the world was coming to an end. I had a real bad nightmare." She replied, "It was just a terrible storm, dear. Just look at that mess outside." Dakota, looking out into the yard, was surprised by the aftermath of the storm. He asked, "How did Jess sleep?" Jess was the younger of his two sisters. She had turned 7 years old a couple of days before. At times it seemed like she was more like 17 years old. She was feisty and resented being the youngest. She tried every way she could to keep up with her older siblings. Mother sighed and replied, "She was up all night." Dakota sensed that there was something else wrong with his mom. He asked, "What's the matter, Mom?" She gave a sweet smile. "I'm just missing your father, dear." Not satisfied with her answer, Dakota asked again, "Anything else?" She took a deep breath and replied, "Oh, I'm just concerned about the truck, dear. I wish your father was here to help me." Dakota tried to reassure his mother that everything would be fine. "It'll be okay, Mom." She replied, "I'm sure my flowers have been ruined." His mother's voice sounded discouraged. Dakota knew how to pick up his mother's spirits. He offered, "Tell you what, I'll give you a hand this morning before school." He smiled and added, "Since it's the last day of school, I could be a few minutes late." Mother, pleased to hear that news, replied, "Thank you, honey. I sure could use the help, and I'll make sure you get to school on time." Dakota laughed and changed the subject. "So when is Dad coming back home? Today?" Mother looked at him, smiling, and replied, "Yes, of course. You know that." They left the window and walked to the kitchen stove, where Mother was preparing breakfast. Dakota asked, "Come on, give me a hint. What's he doing?" Mother replied as she stirred the oatmeal, "You just have to be patient, dear." Dakota, still probing, asked, "He's bringing something here, right?" Mother replied strongly, "Dakota." Dakota tried a different tactic. This time he tried guessing. "Horses, right?" Mother was firm this time. "Don't try and guess any more, honey." Dakota was persistent. "I know it's a pony or a horse." She answered back, "No, and don't try and guess any more." He burst out, "Will I like it?" Mother shook her head. "Honey, don't spoil the surprise. Your father has really done something special for you and Matt." Dakota did not want to share with his brother. Matt was 2 years older and, to put it mildly, a wise guy. The two brothers did not get along at all. A counselor once said that they were the worst fighting brothers she had ever seen. They fought constantly. If it be known, this pair was by far the most combative and argumentative that the world has ever known. The parents had had many problems with the two brothers fighting. They had tried everything to stop the sibling rivalry. Lori, who at 11 was the older of Dakota's two sisters, tried very hard to keep the peace between them. Of all the family, she was the only one able to do a good job. Now Dakota said disappointedly, "Matt, I have to share, huh?" Mother replied, "Yes, even your sisters can have fun with it too." Dakota, pushing his mother for some hints, tapped his hand on the kitchen counter, asking, "What is it?" Looking up into her face, he pleaded, "Give me a hint. Come on, please." She would not give in, but said, "Hopefully you and your brother won't fight, and try to get along this summer." Dakota said sarcastically, "Yeah, right." Mother asked, "Dakota, please promise me you'll try." Dakota angrily replied, "Talk to Matt." Mother looked at him. "I'm asking you first. We can't have this fighting, sweetheart. You'll have to get along with your brother." Dakota defended himself, saying, "It's him, Mom. He starts it every time." She was firm. "Do your part, and Matt will do his part." As she poured the oatmeal into cereal dishes, she pleaded, "Please try and make it work. Do it for me, honey." Dakota smiled and reassured his mother, "I promise, Mom. I'll try hard." She was pleased and gave him a sweet smile. Looking up at the clock, she realized it was getting late. She asked Dakota, "Honey, get your sisters. We have to get moving. Breakfast is ready." Dakota took a quick look at the time and replied, "Okay." As he turned and walked away, Mother called to him. He turned around. They looked at each other. She remarked, "You're going to love it." Dakota smiled as he walked away. And that's the end of Chapter 1. If you want to learn more about this book, if you want to read this book, you can buy it. Ray has this book available on Amazon and also is available for electronic downloads. And the next story in Uncle Milo's Story Corner is going to be How the Camel Got His Hump, which is another one of the Just So stories from Rudyard Kipling. And this is Uncle Milo saying goodbye for this episode.